Test, test.
Good evening. I hereby call this April the 11th meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. All committee members, with the exception of Councilmember Burke, are participating in person. Under the North Carolina General Statutes, this meeting is treated as a virtual or remote meeting and is being streamed live. When there is a vote, it'll be necessary to take a roll call vote. A committee member will be recognized and state their vote. Madam Clerk, if you'd please call the roll, please.
Councilmember Larson.
Present.
Councilmember Burke.
Here.
Councilmember Mundy.
Present.
Councilmember Taylor.
Present. As always, before we move to our consent agenda, we just like to give honor to our police department, our fire department, and our emergency management departments. Thank you for the work that you do to keep the citizens of this community safe. And I know I share the comments of the council and the committee. As you know, items on the consent agenda are typically approved with a sweeping motion unless a member of the council or committee has an item pulled for consideration. There's only one item on the consent agenda today, so members of the committee, I'd entertain a motion.
Move to approve the consent agenda in C1.
Second.
And we'll go to the roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Larson.
Yes.
Councilmember Burke.
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy.
Yes.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes. The consent agenda is approved unanimously. Item G1, please, ma'am.
Item G1, resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement between the city and county to co-locate the 911 call centers at the Forsyth County Public Safety Center at 301 North Church Street. This item was continued from the March 21st, 2022 Public Safety Committee.
Thank you, ma'am. Members of the committee and council, you remember this item from our last meeting. Many of us had questions, I believe those questions have been addressed. But before we move to the vote or to additional conversation, I'll turn it over to Ms. Tony for a brief presentation.
Good afternoon, Chairman Clark and members of the committee and council. As you just stated, this item was reviewed at the last Public Safety Committee meeting. We have since spoken with the majority of the council to update you on questions that you all had about this co-location opportunity with the county. This would require our two separate 911 centers to locate in the Forsyth County Public Safety Building on Church Street. This is necessary because the city's Public Safety Center is not up to a Category 4 of the building code that is necessary to house a public safety center, so it was important to look for an alternative site. Based on some of the operational efficiencies and some past studies that have been done about merging even some components of our 911 center processes, this was the best option, is to look at the space in the Forsyth County's Public Safety Center and co-locate the two operations in one building. We will be able to be on one system, and we can save some resources from the 911 lines that we were paying monthly in the tune of $43,000 a month, so that the two systems could talk to each other. In this lease agreement, the cost would be on average about $29,000 per year. That's $7.27 per square foot. This gives us access to the building. It's a safe and secure building, so any other location would not be suitable. And as well as just being in the same building and location as the other 911 system, we know that there will be efficiencies, faster response time, one system that can communicate with each other. And so there's an operational piece, but the biggest thing for this particular lease agreement is just that the existing 911 center cannot stay within its existing building.
Thank you, Ms. Tony. Any additional questions for Ms. Tony at this time? Councilman Mundy.
Just briefly, I assume there will be no interruption in 911 services we make from our side. So maybe it'll be done in move some over and while some stay. At some point, would you be able to get us a broad timeline on when we are projecting that all the moves will be made and when we'll be up and running fully in the new location? I don't need it now. I just would like to have that if questions come up.
Yeah, I can answer that now, Councilmember Mundy. We are projecting 12 to 18 months to relocate. So ideally, sometime early next year, we would start looking. We are occupying the existing space where the sheriff is currently in. And so the county is currently working now to renovate a space above that. And so they are looking to move the sheriff's out. And so once that happens, our lease agreement would go into effect, and then we would have access to our space.
Okay.
I will say, I guess a good point to bring out is that there will be additional upfit costs to the space. We are currently looking at our 911 funds to see if they are eligible to cover some of these space expenses for consoles. We do have a fund balance in that 911 fund, and so typically they allow this type of expense to upfit a space. So we're going to try to get some approval from the 911 board to see if those are funding that we can utilize for this. But we project sometime, maybe probably 18 months from now.
I want to thank you and Chief Mayo for going over these details in the plan because it makes perfect sense, and I think it's a great thing for us to do, a big move in the right direction.
Thank you.
Councilman Larson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thank you for your time you spent resolving the questions that were asked earlier. I think you answered all of them very well. Clearly, this is a first step in consolidation and efficiency of our emergency response program within the county as a whole. I think that's a great step. I think also it's a secure location, obviously, meaning that if we should have earthquakes or problems within our problems, that we have a best location to respond to the emergencies that will be resulting from that. So I congratulate you on all of that. My only question at this point, I guess, would be, do we have capacity for expansion in this location in view of possibility of adding additional needs within the space? Is it expandable?
Well, what I'll point out, Councilmember Larson, it's about 3,500 square feet, so that does accommodate our existing 911 call center needs. This will be a co-location, so I would say keep that in mind. So right across the wall, there'll be just a wall to divide the space for the county's EMS, and you'll hear a little bit about the fire recommended merger as well. So there would be opportunities as we look to, in the future, potentially consolidate. There would be that opportunity to expand.
So we have capacity in the future to grow if we need to. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, you want a motion?
I'll tell you what, let's get a motion on the floor, then we'll go to Councilwoman Scipio.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to move approval of item G1.
We have a motion by Councilman Larson. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Mundy. Councilwoman Scipio, discussion.
I just wanted to make the comment that I like the lease agreement, that it's 20 years at a fixed rate. And I think that's really great that we got a fixed rate that we can budget for on this particular relocation. And it's for a substantial period of time. Great deal. Good deal.
Thank you for pointing that out, Councilwoman Scipio. Any further discussion on item G1? We've got a motion. It's been properly seconded. Madam Clerk, if you please call a roll.
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes. Item G1 is approved unanimously. Item G2, please.
G2, resolution authorizing an interlocal agreement between the City of Winston-Salem and Forsyth County for the consolidation of the city and county fire dispatch services.
Ms. Tony.
Yes, thank you, Chairman Taylor. This is a new item, but it does go hand in hand with the co-location opportunity that you all just approved to move forward. I would like to recognize Chief Mayo, if that's okay, to review this opportunity for merging fire dispatch with the EMS county's dispatch as well.
Chief Mayo. Welcome to the podium, sir.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, members of the committee and council.
Good evening.
Our very able city clerk is going to show you just 3 slides. So this is an effort to get all the fire and medical dispatching in Forsyth County coming off the same dispatch consoles. So as it currently stands, when a call comes in from the city to the city's public safety answering point that we abbreviate as a PSAP, if it is a medical call, which makes up 74% of the fire department's call volume, that call is transferred from the city public safety answering point to the counties, where it goes through a call processing process. And when it goes through that protocol, if a fire unit is recommended, that call is then transferred back to the city. The county dispatches the ambulance, and the call is transferred back to the city for dispatch of a fire truck. And I have just I'm not going to read, I've never liked it when some folks read slides to me. I'm not going to read this one to you, but I would like to just kind of go over it. So we're going to see shorter response times for medical calls. We're going to see increased firefighter safety by the nature of the fact that the county fire consoles can monitor tactical channels. Those are the channels we work off of at emergencies, and the city's PSAP does not have that capability. We're going to get more streamlined customer service because the 911 caller is not being passed back and forth between multiple public safety answering points. And by the nature of not passing those calls back and forth, we reduce the chances of there being some kind of error, be it technological or human. So our primary aid partner in the county is Forsyth County EMS. Our secondary aid partners are the combination fire departments that surround the cities. And this is going to put all those telecommunications coming out of the same room and off of the same dispatch console. And we've talked about some of the costs associated with this, but and you'll remember, Mr. Chairman, that I made a presentation back, I think it was in September, October, about our need for additional ladder company service on our east side.
Sir.
And we've been working on an arrangement with Kernersville where we would place a ladder at our Fire Station 19 where there is currently an engine. We would take that engine out of service. And Kernersville is working to put an engine at the Beeson Crossroads Fire Department, which is about a mile from our Station 19. So our residents on the east side would get their engine service from Kernersville, and they would get ladder service, and the residents in West Kernersville would get their ladder service from the city. And we could put that ladder service, we would typically hire 18 people to put that ladder in service, but we would be able to do that by hiring only 6 because we're essentially swapping a ladder in for an existing engine. So that would pay for the telecommunicators that we're going to have to pay for, that the county is going to add. Madam Clerk, if I can see the next slide. Other things that are going to happen when city fire moves to the county is the county uses an accredited call processing protocol that's going to help us. It's going to help us manage fire resources more accurately. And Ms. Tony's already touched on the fact that the county has the capacity to provide us the redundancy for notification that the insurance services offices requires, which is how property insurance premiums are set. And we're currently paying $43,000 a month for that redundancy the way we do it with the city. We're actually not paying it anymore. We cut it off in January. But the county has the capacity to provide that redundancy for about $500 per station one-time cost. So, we're going to get better data collection on the fire side. And probably what means as much to me as anything is we're going to know what our EMS call processing time is, and that is the time between when the phone rings in the PSAP and fire units are dispatched. And we do not know what that time is right now because there's not a way to collect it because we don't get a time stamp on it until it comes back from the county. And I would just say, I think Ms. Tony may have touched on this also, this stuff starts to run together, but we have a consultant study from 2000, over 20 years ago, that said that the PSAPs needed to be merged in the county. And this mechanism of having two PSAPs answering 911 calls is not accepted as the industry standard best practice. That is all, Mr. Chairman. I'll take any questions you or others may have.
Any questions for Chief Mayor on item G2? Councilman Larson.
I'm sorry. I have one more slide. I want to be transparent, if I may.
Give us all the information we need.
That is the cost that's associated with this. So there is a graduated cost scale, but the cost so the county to take on our call load is going to have to hire 8 telecommunicators. But the cost to the city for that would fall off in year 6, and there'd be no cost after that for the salaries and benefits for those telecommunicators. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Councilman Larson.
Well, that was one of the questions of how much more staffing would we need, but the bottom line is a more efficient and timely response. If you have a heart attack and you want minutes, seconds count,
Yes,
you should remove a couple of stutters in the program to allow a quicker director response team, either EMS or fire, to respond to the site. There's a lot of load on the dispatchers, obviously, to make sure they get the word out to exact locations and communicate the need.
Yes, sir. The city fire answers more than twice as many calls as all the other fire departments in the county combined. So it is an additional call
I
load.
believe that. So if a dispatcher receives a call and somebody's impaired, we have a way of locating exactly where that call is coming from and which fire station needs to respond to that.
So if it comes from a landline, we are almost always perfect on where that call comes from. If it comes from a cellular device, a wireless device, which is about where 80% of the calls that come into a PSAP these days, and that's a nationwide number, they're coming from wireless devices. There is a mechanism by which that is triangulated on an XY axis, and it is relatively close. It is not perfect. The Federal Communications Commission is putting in a standard where there will also be a Z axis, because right now if somebody calls from the Winston Tower, we can triangulate and see that the caller is coming from the Winston Tower, but we don't know if they're on the third floor or the 17th floor. But there will be a Y-axis locator coming, so that technology is getting better. But for today, it is pretty good.
So the dispatcher really needs as much information from the caller as possible. I mean,
Yes,
the bottom
sir.
line is you got to say as
Yes,
much
sir.
as you can, where you are, how you are, and what's going on. Yeah. Thank you.
Councilwoman Scipio.
Yes, thanks, Chief. I think this is a very interesting move for us, but this is just the merging of the 911 call system for fire and EMS.
Yes, ma'am. So when we turn the switch on for fire, if you're a city caller, it'll still go to the city's PSAP, but it'll be an immediate electronic transfer to the county, and they will handle that call from their own, call processing, dispatching, talking to field units. So that transfer back to the city we will eliminate that.
And at what point in time do we expect this to take place if the council approves it on Monday?
If approved, we look to turn it on in August.
Oh, that quickly?
Yes, ma'am.
And those beautiful costs that go down to zero, do they include in addition to personnel, is there new software and or hardware that also includes like furniture and stuff that's involved in the relocation?
No, ma'am. So this phase, this first phase of moving fire to the county does not include moving any people. And county fire we've given them one of our mobile computing terminals that they communicate with our field units, and they have been successfully transmitting call information to that mobile data terminal for several months now, just as a test to make sure everything works like it's supposed to.
But there won't be people moving?
Not in this phase, just with the county fire taking the responsibility for city fire call processing and dispatching. The co-location, which is kind of what I think of as phase two, as Ms. Tony talked about in 12 to 18 months, that involves moving the people.
Oh, okay. I guess I had that confused. I thought it was all one big move at one time. So they're going to actually take over the service, given their current staff, and as they train up other people, they'll be moving in for that. And then the big move for whoever we have on staff will move in about 18 months, when the facility, the site is prepped.
Has been upfitted, yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you for that. I didn't have that clear. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Adams.
Thank you, Chair Taylor. Chief Mayo and Ms. Tony, do we know of any other cities that have done this in North Carolina of our size? And if so, do you have any knowledge of how it's going?
So the one nearest to us is Greensboro and Guilford County. They consolidated their PSAP some years ago. And we actually, when we first started down this path, we had the folks who orchestrated that merger come over and talk to us about, what to do, what not to do. But yes, this has been done. The state of North Carolina has been on a mission for some years to try to reduce the number of PSAPs in North Carolina. So these PSAP mergers, these things, this is not something that has never been done before. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any additional questions for Chief Mayo on item G2? Thank you, Chief. And just to be clear to the committee, this particular action that's requested is to approve the resolution to authorize the agreement between the city and the county to consolidate the city and fire dispatch services. So with that being said, is there a motion to approve this item?
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilman Mundy. Is there a second?
Second.
Properly seconded. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Councilmember Larson,
Yes.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Mundy,
Aye.
Councilmember Taylor.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am. Item G2 is also approved unanimously. Ms. Tony, is there any further business that we should consider at this time? Members of the council committee, any other items we should consider for the good of the order?
Thank you.
There's nothing further. We consider this meeting to be adjourned. Thank you.